Okay, there we go. We are live. I say it every single time, so family, and I mean it every single time. We got a special guest today. If you haven't seen, if you didn't get the notice, today we're going to talk about, of course, the event, one of the most important events this year, astrological events this year, the total sun eclipse. And of course, every single time I bring a special guest on, today is no different. I got one of the best astrologers, certified life coach, NAACP award-winning activist, podcast host of Faith and the Revolution, regularly featured guest on nationally syndicated shows such as Russ Parr Morning Show and, of course, CBS Sunday Morning. So, family, I brought a real one today. Welcome, my sister Tracey L Rogers. Tracey, what's happening with you?
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm super excited for this conversation, actually.
Listen, this is an important conversation. It's one of those conversations that if we don't pay attention to it, can have an impact on our lives, and we walk around blind, not knowing what's going on, right?
Exactly.
So that's, for me, astrology is an area where, you know, I often lean upon people like you who have an expertise and understanding exactly what's happening and provide insight and guidance on how to adjust and what to be aware of. So so let's jump into it. We got Monday, April 8th. So that's right around the corner.
I know, less than a week away.
Less than a week away. So what is a total? Let's start with the basics. Let's take it down to third grade level. What is a total solar eclipse?
Yeah, so a solar eclipse occurs when the moon transits in between the sun and the earth, and it basically blocks the sun and casts a big shadow on the earth, on this planet. Usually we get 2 eclipses in a series. So we have a lunar eclipse and we have a solar eclipse. But this one, of course, is a big one because of its totality, that it will completely block the sun. The path of vision of the solar eclipse is pretty far stretched across the northern hemisphere, I think starting as far south as Mexico. And this is going to be the last total solar eclipse until 2044.
Wow, we got a whole 20 years to experience the next one. So you know it's gonna be a real one.
Exactly.
Wow. So I often, when I'm doing reading, it's a total solar eclipse, but then it's also happening in Aries.
Yes.
So that gives you a little. So what's the significance of that?
Yeah. So eclipses are always falling along different zodiac axes, right? And so the series of eclipses we're in right now, which technically started about a year ago last spring, involve these events along the Libra Aries axis. And so that means the lunar eclipse happened in Libra, the solar eclipse is going to happen in Aries. And if we look at these 2 signs by themselves, these are signs that center initiation, focus, passionate endeavors, how we are finding balance between self and other, but also asserting our own independent path and individuality. And so Libra is known as the scales in astrology, the sign that values balance and harmony, whereas Aries is this warrior energy that is very self-focused, self-initiating. So to have a solar eclipse, which solar eclipses represent these new chapters, these new beginnings, astrologically speaking, to have a solar eclipse fall along the Aries Libra axis, particularly in the sign of Aries, just speaks of a new chapter when it comes to how we are becoming who we're meant to be, how we're stepping along our own personal path and journey with greater courage and assertion and bravery, and directly, embodying our individuality and sense of identity.
That's dope. So when I'm thinking of Aries, and you said something that was critical, warrior energy, and oftentimes that courage, that bravery. And so in my mind, I'm thinking of warrior, I'm thinking courage, bravery, I'm thinking of strength. But to flip it, the courage and the bravery and the strength to be willing to let go of some of those things, right? Some of that, the traditional masculine energy would say, hey, it's time to muscle up on some things and hunker down. Conversely, it could be that we'd be willing to let go of things to embrace something that will serve us better.
Yeah.
Which is a pivot.
And that's kind of the duality that we experience when we have eclipses, generally speaking. Lunar eclipses are these supercharged full moons demand release. So anytime we have a full moon, it is an invitation to surrender, to let go, and just let things kind of fall into place as they need to. So with the lunar eclipse in Libra, which we just had about a week and a half ago, last Monday on March 25th, that was an invitation to release the weight.
Gotcha.
Be holding us from going in these new directions and finding balance in that process. And it really is a balance of those, those masculine, feminine energies.
I love it. I love it. So there's somewhat of an overlap, if you will, of the energies at some point where we're just coming out of a full moon. Now we're going into an eclipse. So that duality, wow, is really there. That's crazy. So one of the things I like about, with you from a life coach perspective is that you can give you the astrological aspect of it, but then boil it down to what it means in terms of, just everyday living and practice.
Yeah.
So what does that look like now in terms of, we got this big eclipse going? What can people do? How can they prepare themselves for it?
Well, honestly, the ancients believed that eclipses were these harbingers of change. I mean, imagine not knowing a thing about eclipses.
Right.
The Mesopotamian era, right? And seeing the sun blotted out by the moon.
Freaking out. Freaking out.
But it's always cyclical, and it's during the 2-week period in between the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse, but then the 6-month period between each pair of eclipses, where we do in fact enter into these new chapter beginnings. So the lunar eclipse is something that's ending, that's shifting, that's shedding, that's releasing, while the solar eclipse is new start. And so usually what I recommend folks to do during eclipse season is to actually rest. Oftentimes when you have a full moon or when you have a new moon, which a solar eclipse is just a supercharged new moon, you'll hear a lot of spiritualists say to do certain rituals, right? Again, full moons are for releasing, new moons are for new intentions. But because the energy around eclipses is so supercharged, you really probably won't have the energy to do any kind of ritual. And if you do, you may have the adverse effect, right? Of like, oh man, this was really good, and now I'm like drained from it.
Yeah.
So eclipses were also typically a time to fast and to recharge. And so I would advise anyone to just kind of ease into this period.
Yeah.
It won't be until the energy of the season kind of wanes, shifting into the end of this month, when you'll start to be more directly aware of what to do next.
Wow. So we got the impact on our energy combined with the fact that we just discussed a few moments ago that Mercury is in retrograde.
Yeah.
And then we're coming off of a full moon. So there's a lot of things going on vibration.
It's a lot. And for listeners who may not be familiar with Mercury retrograde, all the planets do what's called retrograde. They give the optical illusion of orbiting the sun backwards. Mercury retrogrades 3 to 4 times a year, so it's not an uncommon influence. And Mercury in astrology connects us to what keeps us connected, our gadgets, technology, transportation, communication, things of that nature. So when Mercury is retrograde, the things that keep us connected go a little funky, right? So your cell phone starts acting up, or your laptop's glitching out, right? All of these like minor nuisances. But this is happening in the sign of Aries, which is, again, direct assertion. So we may experience this as a lot of self-questioning, uncertainty, self-doubt, or just delays in our ability to move in a particular direction that is more self-focused. And all of this is happening during the eclipse season. It's just another layer of stress to all of this, which is why I'm telling folks, like, just chill.
Yeah. Rest in that. You can rest. It's okay to rest.
Just rest. Let what needs to shed be shed in a way that happens organically. Mercury retrogrades bring this period of reflection and renewal. And so consider the past as you move forward into your future, and do so with intention. You know, Aries is so direct, but this is not the time to assert at all. It's the time to kind of allow what needs to gestate, so that once this energy calms, you're in a position to actually assert yourself forward.
Wow. Be cool with just resting. Be cool with resting. You know, it's funny. I gotta admit, I started this just earlier this year, just being more intentional about moving slower, being deliberate about slowing down in my emotion, like in my movement.
Like walking. Same. Yeah. Walking slower. Yeah.
Yeah. Just being very deliberate and intentional. Every step, you know, just slowing down and appreciating it more, as opposed to always being in a state of hurry to get somewhere. I really ain't need to hurry to get there. It was just kind of just that natural, you know, I got into that rhythm. Yeah.
And I think what makes this challenging too is that we've just entered spring. You know, we just had the spring equinox, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And so it is a time of, you know, coming out and doing all of the things. So there is this rush of energy now that winter slumber period has ended. Yeah. So it can feel a little jolting, right? Because you want to go, but Mercury retrograde is like, nope, not yet. And then you got these eclipses peaking, draining your energy. So it's easy to feel, you know, like just your own natural clock and biorhythm maybe a little off. All the more to just ease into this energy and just relax into it.
That's cool. How often, I guess, what time period before the eclipse happened do we start to feel the effects?
Yeah, you can start to feel the impact of an eclipse a month before the first eclipse of the season even hits. Wow. And so if you can reflect on or think back to what was playing out or percolating around the end of February, give you some insight of what's kind of developing more as we move through the season. And then events from an eclipse can continue to materialize potentially 3 to 6 months after an eclipse season has ended. So, and 6 months from now, we have another pair of eclipses. So really it's like these, you know, page turning events as it relates to our own personal journey in this incarnation.
Yeah. You know, that's powerful, because I can tell sometimes during, you know, I'm trying to get some sleep, I'll wake up in the middle of the night around the time of an eclipse. I'm like, why am I just all of a sudden waking up at this time of night? And normally I sleep really well, but when I know an eclipse is coming around, I can actually feel it. Yep. I can feel it in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, if anyone who's listening, if you're feeling like you're a little foggy, if your sleep patterns are a little off, if you feel like you need to invite more comfort foods into your home, you would be totally valid in feeling all of those things as we navigate this energy. We don't know. Energy is everything, right? It's just such a innate aspect of how we navigate our lives. And if you're not connected, you know, it's hard to understand, why do I feel this way? And so you can blame the eclipses and
That's it. Another thing that helps me out, spending time in nature. I mean, a day like today is a little bit rainy, hard to do, but just being outside, looking at the trees, go for a nice walk, just get grounded into the energy. Yeah.
I mean, you really do have to anchor yourself in this energy. You know, you can't calm the storm, but you can absolutely calm yourself. And that's where you want to focus. Whatever it is that gives you peace of mind, whatever it is that keeps your nervous system regulated, whatever it is that, you know, helps you to feel a sense of presence with where you are in this moment, do those things. Do them unapologetically, especially as we navigate this turbulent cosmic weather that will be with us the entire month of April.
Taking care of our nervous system. Do what makes you come alive. Feel good about yourself.
All
all that. Unapologetically, right?
Right, exactly.
Because when we're feeling good about ourselves, honestly, we make better decisions.
It's
We
true.
make way better decisions. We're more aligned. We're in a state of grace, of ease, of flow, all of those things.
Yeah. And I think that's especially important this particular eclipse season because another layer of stress is the asteroid Chiron in all of this, right?
Talk about it.
And so Chiron in astrology is known as the wounded healer. And wherever this asteroid is transiting around our unique astrological chart, it reveals to us some pain points, some stuff, some wounds that we're still carrying that need some reconciling, some massaging, some healing. And I think what's important to keep in mind when I talk about pain points, these aren't just things that eventually you heal and get over and that's it, right? This isn't about fixing the wound as much as it's nurturing it, getting proximate to it, and doing your part to heal it as best you can so that it's not affecting you adversely, right? And so with Chiron, also in the sign of Aries currently, this asteroid will link up to the solar eclipse in Aries as well on April 8th. So it's another layer of stress that demands, if we are moving into these new chapters, that we do some healing. And this is something that we're experiencing personally. I've been telling folks to kind of think about where you're feeling unsettled, because quite frankly, 2024 is the year where we are more directly confronting all that feels unsettled in our lives. And so this is a perfect opportunity, this eclipse season, to do so.
That's funny. That's so true, though. Yeah. So true. Yeah, it's been very interesting in terms of confronting those things, man.
Yeah, personally and collectively. And it's almost as if, I mean, the only way I can describe it is like we're growing tired of ourselves. We're growing tired of our own feelings of lack, our own ways in which we block or inhibit our growth, right? And so things are reaching this culminating peak point, especially during this eclipse season. And with Aries in the mix, we have to be brave, right? We have to be direct. We have to be courageous. And so in many ways, that's a helpful buffer, right? That Aries influence, but it doesn't make it any easier. Right? So that's the other layer to this.
Wow. It reminds me of ayahuasca ceremony, if you will. Not as intense in terms of the purging component of it, right? But having the courage and the bravery to sit and to observe and to witness the unhealed aspects of your life.
Yes.
Right? Like,
and I feel like that's been a significant theme in more recent years, especially starting with the global pandemic. And we were forced to kind of sit with ourselves and our stuff and examine our lives and where we may have been under living. And so this is definitely a year, again, where we're more directly confronting what is unsettled. And this is a perfect opportunity this month to do so. That's why we rest and we reflect and we ground and we be intentional with how we move so that we can kind of nurture ourselves in the best way possible while healing takes place.
All forms of self-love.
Yeah.
Forms of self-love and forgiveness.
All of it.
Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. And I think, this self-love it's so huge, and it can also be nebulous to a lot of folks. Like, what does that mean? Right. And so I think for this particular eclipse season, a question to ask yourself is, where are you holding yourself back in your own life? Right. And whatever the answer to that question is, self-love would be then doing the opposite. And hopefully that's a helpful way of just identifying what self-love looks like to each person. For me, it's not abandoning my intuition. That's self-love. And so think about that. Where might you feel like you're not living to your fullest potential, or where you're trying to live a life that doesn't reflect what is true for you and who you are and your personal path, or where you're too caught up in what society tells you should be doing, or what loved ones tell you should be doing. Where is this affecting you to the point where it's inhibiting you? And what does it look like to change that? That can be entirely self-loving.
courage to observe it.
Yeah.
The courage to observe it.
It's not easy.
No, it's simple, but not easy.
Benefits are amazing, and you can like feel them instantly.
Simple, but not easy. But no, it's a beautiful time, because I think for everyone, it gives us an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to choose differently.
Right.
To choose differently.
There's just such power in that. There's such self-empowerment in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have observed, oh, this is a pattern, or this is a habit, or this is a cycle that I am constantly repeating and perpetuating that doesn't serve me. And then making the conscious decision to do something differently or to respond differently. It's like you reclaim so much of yourself in that process.
That's right.
And it does require awareness. It does require sitting with, what are these patterns that are getting in my way? But it's such a beautiful, beautiful process and experience.
It is. It's transformative. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You do this, you make different decisions based off of an expanded awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
Based off of expanded awareness. No longer a victim or having things happen to you.
Yeah.
You're now reclaiming your power. You're forgiving. You're acting out of self-love. And you're choosing higher. You're choosing more expansive ways of being.
Right. And all of this energy that's playing out in the ethers is supporting you in that process, right? Like with Mercury retrograde, we're having to slow down and reflect, because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
With the solar eclipse initiating this new personal chapter for each of us in different areas of life, we've got to work through the kinks that might hold us back. That's why Chiron is in the mix. So the universe is literally kind of nurturing us through this process. They're supporting us. The universe is supporting us in these laboring pains with all of these activities that are happening simultaneously. And all we have to do is, coming back to where we started, is surrender to this process. That's it.
That's dope. It reminds me of a practice I learned with Michael Beckwith's Life Visioning course. He talks about asking empowering questions. Asking empowering questions and challenging moments, right? Where there's the uncertainty. And so asking, what is God's highest vision for my life? Or what's seeking to emerge during this time?
Yeah.
What's seeking to emerge? Just being available and receptive to it, to that intuition, as you alluded to earlier.
Right.
And just catching that insight, but asking the question in and of itself is the seed for the transformation.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be scary to ask the question itself, right? Because, oh man, what if we get the answer?
Best part.
What if we don't like the answer, right?
Yeah.
So even sometimes, just because the answers are always within us, as long as we are connected to our own source and essence and divine, the answers are always there. It literally is just a matter of asking the question, allowing ourselves to receive it. And there's just such power in that.
There is. And going back to the courage to ask the question. And sometimes it's just asking the question, and in that doesn't require immediate action.
No.
It's just sitting with it. You can just sit with it and just behold it, just listen to it.
Yeah. There was a quote that I read: for your own peace of mind, try not to understand everything.
Yes.
And what I love about that is that you can ask the questions, right? You can absolutely ask the questions. You can take on the seeking approach to fully understand. And at the same time, you can also just sit for the time being without knowing and being okay with the not knowing. Something very soothing in that. There's something that feels like, it's like it relieves pressure, I don't have to try and figure it all out on my own. I can trust that source will guide me and provide me with what I need. And that's what these eclipses are doing, right? So that's why I'm saying, like, just rest, ground, connect yourself, nourish yourself, and just trust that this is a process unfolding for you on your behalf.
See, that's you hit the nail on the head with that, right? Because I think the underlying thought process behind that, or mindset behind that, or even knowledge behind that, is that there is an evolutionary force, energy that's always working for our good.
Yeah.
What happens is we create this illusion of separation from that energy, and we feel like we got to struggle and go through strife to make things happen. When in substance, we can really just rest in that presence and allow things to unfold the way they are already loaded in us to unfold naturally. I think that's the difference.
Yes. And again, that's hard, right?
It's an unlearning. It's an unlearning.
It's an entire unlearning, and you're using a completely different muscle, spiritual muscle. You're using a spiritual muscle. But at the same time, I can't emphasize enough how true it is that when you just allow, right, you have to do your part, right? Like you have to ask the question if you want to know. Yes. If I want to buy a house, I have to work with a realtor. I got to look, right?
That's right.
But when I can just do my part and have that faith and trust that there's a higher source and power conspiring on my behalf, makes it so much easier to find that house, or it makes it so much easier to receive that answer. And you're absolutely right. We do live in a society that, you know, you got to hustle, you got to work hard, you got to push, you got to do all of the things. It's a society that would in fact have us betray our innate knowing, right? That connection to the divine. And it is this experience of separation when in fact, everything is connected. It's the complete opposite of separation, right? And sometimes I wish I could just, you know, I don't know, pop a seed in someone's brain and like have it be made clear entirely. But it takes time, and it isn't. Yeah,
it takes time. It's interesting. There's a quote. I think it's from Thoreau. The seed of 1,000 forests lies in one acorn. Right. And I often say the fulfillment of 1,000 desires lies in one question. Asking the right empowering question can produce an intention that will unfold in our lives.
Right.
I think sometimes we get into, you know, we just talked about it before, we get in our own way in terms of trying to either figure out how things are going to happen or figuring like we have to do it on our own.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to put some action forward. No question about it. We have to attenuate at that same frequency. Like you said, if you want to buy a house, you got to get in contact with a realtor, but you don't have to figure out all the other steps. There's an energy behind that's working on our good, for our good.
Not only is the energy working for our good, but it's probably going to deliver results better than what our puny, limited human minds could possibly envision and imagine for our own selves.
Facts.
And that's been my lived experience. It's always better when you just kind of align and work in tandem and work in partnership with the divine. Right. Usually goes better than what we anticipated on our own.
1,000%. That's why I say start with the feeling good about yourself in the morning. Like for me, get just feeling good. If that's meditation, if that's yoga, if that's going for a walk, if that's having just a cup of tea and just sitting watching the sun, whatever that is, to nourish myself and to come into alignment, that's everything.
Changes everything. It changes your entire day. Yeah. And so that's why I'm excited about this particular eclipse season, because it really is an opportunity for folks to see a path for themselves with greater clarity, if only we would allow it to be revealed. And working through those pain points in order to get started on that path. There's such potential for healing in all of this energy. And I'm here for it. And the world needs it. As we think about what's happening on the broader global stage. When we're healing ourselves, we're literally embodying what a healed world looks like. And so there are larger implications of our healing as well during this eclipse season.
That change that we're looking for in the world, it starts with us.
Starts with us.
Starts within.
And so many folks feel that that's such a cliche thing to say. And what does that mean? But no, it's pretty straightforward and pretty direct. Hurt people, free people, heal people, right?
That's right.
Like, it's a thing. And it definitely starts with us.
That's it. You know, it's interesting when you start doing the work, you start the people that you hang around, your tribe, your community.
Yeah.
It changes.
It
changes. It's a different frequency that you're carrying, and you attract people that are aligned with that.
Right.
And then that is then amplified. I always say you go faster in community.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
Faster.
Yeah. And I think, coming back to the separation piece, this feeling of being separated from the divine kind of translates in real time and us feeling like we're separated from other people, right? And so we live in this individualistic way of thinking, right, when we need each other. We need connection. We need community. We cannot thrive and become our fullest selves without our tribe around us. And that's so important.
It's critical. It's critical. This morning I woke up and after my meditation, I saw the news about the earthquake in Taiwan. Now, one of the members of the community, the A Course in Miracles group, she lives in Turkey, but she went to Taiwan, I think, for like a month or something like that, visit family. And the first thing I think about, I'm like, yo, let's reach out. I got to connect. Let's mobilize everybody. Let's say some prayers for her and her family, make sure everybody is good. Thankfully, everyone is well. But just for her, knowing that she's got people that are always praying, that are always holding the high watch for her to see the good in all situations. Like, just that peace of mind alone.
That's enough.
It is. It's powerful. It is powerful.
Yeah.
There's no separation. That's the beauty. I had psychic medium Jenny on yesterday. We were talking about, just communicating with, the non-physical, right? And so we got into the conversation where she has a friend who communicates with animals. We were just talking about how if you get on that frequency with anything, you can have communication. You can be in communion with it. And it's so true because there's no separation. There's no separation. There's only one. And so the things that happen, whether it's here in the United States, whether it's overseas, it's our responsibility to see people the way we see ourselves. Those are our brothers and our sisters.
Yeah,
those are our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, it's true, and it's interesting because when you think of what's happening all over the world, we are directly connected and impacted by it. Even and indirectly, right? You can at least feel the heaviness of the collective grief that we're all experiencing. You could feel it during COVID.
Yes.
And so, as you said, everything is intricately interwoven when it comes to life on this planet. And I think that, when we come back to the importance of being in community with others and seeing your friend in Turkey as like your sister, right? Like, this is my tribe. It really kind of fosters it's like a intuitive connection with folks, right? I guess what's coming to mind is the Celestine prophecy, right? Like,
I love that. Yeah.
Being in this vibration with everyone.
Yes.
It's just so powerful. It's so powerful.
It is. I always go back to that morphic resonance, right? That the 100 monkey experiment, right? Where that frequency, that field is available and we're all in it. We're all in it, but it's the awareness of it and our unification, our inseparability, our indivisibility from it, that it is the essence of who we are. And that is where we live, we move and have our being in that space. In that space. And it's just so important with all that's going on socially. It's a challenging time, I think, for people who are healers. Because our responsibility is to be aware of what's going on socially, right? At the same time, I go back to the saying of holding the high watch, right? Of seeing the truth of who we are as spiritual beings having a human incarnation,
Mm-hmm.
selecting at some point when we awaken, we're able to be more, let's say, intentional about the experiences that we create.
Right. Right.
Right. About the experiences we create. And so in that space, being able to just hold that space for folks, right? We may not be able to go to Palestine. But there's at some point our hands are tied in that.
Right.
Right. But I feel we have a responsibility, whether it's Palestine, whether it's Cameroon or Sudan or Niger or Mali or Philly or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We have a responsibility, because I believe in my heart of hearts that we've agreed before we incarnated into these bodies to hold that space.
Right.
To
Right.
hold that space as a function of, one, of our awareness, but two, our decision to heal ourselves.
Right.
Because as you alluded to, heal people.
Exactly.
And so I can never unsee the truth of who we are as beings on this planet. I honestly believe, for me, I witnessed that before in ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize, I never truly realized how sacred we are as beings on this planet until I got into a room about 80 some odd people who were on their own unique healing journeys.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped out of my own pain and my own healing. And I just took a moment. I was like, oh, wait. This is something way bigger than us just having physical bodies.
Yes. Yes.
This is something that is infinite and eternal.
Right.
And that awareness has forever shifted the way I perceive, whether it's people who are being, victimized by the different isms of, like, whether it's militarism, capitalism, the Martin Luther King, or racism, whatever the ism is, right?
Yeah.
Or it's or someone who's oppressing.
Right.
You hold such a level of compassion and love, independent of even the circumstance.
Right. Yeah. And I think it goes back to this basic awareness that everybody is dealing with something. And I always say people are not waking up in the morning with the intention to disappoint or to cause harm. It's a rare person that has that on their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that you should let someone who's caused harm just get a pass, right? That someone should be held accountable, of course. And that someone is also still very equally deserving of love and compassion, because we're all dealing with stuff.
Correct.
And with the healing piece, I think what's also important to note is that, yes, like, and I think I've said this to you before. I remember when I moved back to Philly and a friend of mine said that healers were being called back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, figuratively. And not only are we creating space to support others, but we're also still healing, because it's something that it's a never ending experience. Healing is not linear.
Correct.
And so when we talk about healing, when we talk about using our gifts to support others, I think it's important to emphasize, like, you don't have to have these big, massive experiences, right?
Correct.
You don't have to be an astrologer. You don't have to be a psychic. You don't have to be a yoga instructor. Like, you could just practice kindness.
Right.
And that can be so healing to the person that receives it, right? And so it just comes back to connecting with our innate, sacred human selves and allowing our experience on this earth plane to develop in alignment with the bigger story that's unfolding around us, that's always unfolding around us. There's very little we have control over in this incarnation, except ourselves and how we show up as the best humans, spiritual beings having human experiences on this earth plane. I think that's also important to keep in mind. You don't have to have these big, large successes and victories. It's the small little steps that can make such a huge difference.
That's it. The small steps. Something simple as kindness, as you said.
Yeah,
right?
That's it.
Forgiveness, practicing forgiveness, right? Like, I think it's Martin Luther King Jr. said that forgiveness isn't just a once and done thing, right? It's a constant attitude, right? It's not an occasional act. It's a constant attitude.
Yes.
Every day we forgive, because that keeps our heart open.
Exactly.
Keeps our heart open.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a lot to kind of ponder and think about moving through this season, and really connecting with, again, our innate essence and how we can live that more fully.
Yes.
Aries often get such a bad rep because they're so pushy and assertive and going. Like, if you know an Aries in your life, you understand this. But I think what folks often don't realize is that Aries, the job of Aries the Ram, is to literally self-actualize, to become the most evolved version of the self.
Wow.
So that's literally where we are all being pulled right now. The universe is saying that we all each need to level up because the stakes have increased, right? Humanity is being compromised in too many different parts of the world. Right. And so we need to step more fully into this experience of individuation so that we can live out our life path in support of the greater good. That's ultimately the message of these eclipses.
It's a beautiful thing. When you put it in that context, it's absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful gift. And it's so necessary at this point in the planet, right? Like the divine timing of it all.
It's all right on time. It's
right on time.
Yes.
Right on time. There's that old saying, if it ain't all good, it just means it ain't all done, right? So it's
that's exactly correct. Exactly correct. Yes.
So we're moving through it.
Yeah, and there may be folks who are, kind of trepid about this energy. The uncertainty, the fear of uncertainty is real.
Yeah.
And the other side of Aries, the shadow side of Aries, is that it's a sign that's impulsive and impatient, right? Okay. So we always want to get to the finish line, but this is also a kind of experience that we're having to be patient with. That's also a part of this picture unfolding. But I do want to acknowledge the fear that's real, right? Like, that's a thing. And this is where the bravery and courage of this warrior-like energy that is Aries comes to support us.
Trust in it. We can trust in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trust in it, can rest in it. Reminds me of floating, right? When we try to float, you resist, you end up sinking.
Right.
Right. But when you just trust in it and your own buoyancy, I think Lisa Nichol calls it trust in, you bounce back. Right.
Peace in that. Like, when I think of literal floating, I can hear the sound of my breath. I'm calm. I'm like shifting, but in such a like meditative way, literally in flow. There's just such peace in that. There's such peace in that. I mean, imagine being in that state of flow, right? Again, it can be a scary place because we're taught we should be always moving. We should always be doing and going. There's that sense of urgency.
Correct.
But there's power in that feminine side of receptivity, right? Just being. There's just, it's so juicy.
It's being in that space. It's being present. It's being present.
That's it.
It's being
there's something to be said of all I need to do is my best today. That's it.
That's it. Your best is good enough.
It's
more than enough. It's more than enough.
Yeah.
Cool part is that when we're floating, I know if I'm at the beach and I'm floating in the ocean, I'm there. I'm present. I'm not worried about the plane ride home. I'm not worried about. I'm present.
Right.
I'm present, and I'm in a state of non-resistance, a state of just surrender, complete and total surrender.
Right. And this is what we mean about like the unlearning of our own conditioning and programming that has us going against this state of flow. It takes practice. Like, you and I did not wake up one day in the state of flow.
No way. No way.
No, we still have to be conscious of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it takes practice and it takes investment, right? And maybe that's another self-love piece of allowing yourself to just be in that state of flow.
That's right. That's right. For me, I remember, I always go back to this story, the very first time that I meditated. I mean, it was an incredibly hectic time in my life, but I picked up my phone and literally 3 minutes. That's all I had, because I knew there was no way in the world I was gonna be able to meditate for 30. With all the thoughts I had going on, I was
Yeah.
like, no, that wasn't gonna happen. 3 minutes. I closed my eyes, and I even did a mudra, something I had saw on TV. I didn't even know what that was. I had no clue. So I just did a mudra and I closed my eyes, and literally every single worry, concern, fear just surfaced. And I was like, oh, this is real. Like, I had made that real in my mind, and it was just like, finally became aware of it.
Yep.
And from that moment forward, I said, oh, I have to do this daily. I had to do it daily, because it was just a part of me that I needed to heal. And I needed to come into a realization, hey, that I'm creating a future based off of worries and concerns that aren't even real.
Exactly.
Not even real. Yeah.
And there's another trippy side to that. And I use the word trippy facetiously. And it is this experience of actually receiving more in the way of abundance and prosperity when you're in that state of flow. When you're connected to source, when you're aligned with divine energy and influence, so much more comes your way, things that you didn't even know that you needed. And that is also something that takes getting used to, right? But it comes back to what you were saying before, like, we are sacred creatures. Like, being human at this point in time is a really special thing. And if we're not aware of that innately, then we are going to block our blessings inadvertently, right? And so there's something to be said, again, with operating from this place of calm, inner serenity, inner peace. That doesn't mean that life isn't happening around you. You still got to pick your kids up from school. You still got to pay your bills. You got to do all these earthly things, right? And still the balance of being in this world, not of it. There's just so much more in the way of reward that comes from that, you know. That's another important part of that state of flow.
That's it. So I think the Bible says, be of good cheer because I have overcome the world, right? Or being able to overcome the world, understand the unity consciousness, the oneness of all, the presence of life that is always working for our good, that is always working for our good. Being able to tap into that moment by moment. Sometimes you got to do it a little bit more, maybe in seasons like this, right? Where there's a lot more things that are happening, but being able to lean into it, to trust into it.
Yep. And trust is such a big word. I mean, there are a lot of other astrological events playing out too that center this theme of falling back on faith and remembering that it is not entirely up to us. And that's okay, right? We can look to higher sources of energy and support to further our efforts.
That's right. That's right. It was so funny yesterday in the conversation with Jenny, the medium. What she was saying was that all the different beings of light. She did a reading, and all the beings of light that were around. And I always go back to it that when we agreed to come here, we didn't agree to be here by ourselves. We're never alone. We're always guided. We're always supported. We are always supported. And so we will have a physical community that we'll be a part of as well, right? But there are non-physical, right, beings that are always around. They're always offering guidance. They're always advocating and working for our good. It's the recognition and awareness that we need to have that's the order of life. That's the order of life. And that can be the order of our day if we so choose to acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it. I always say that we are surrounded by guides of spirit and flesh. And that's it. That's it. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. I love it. I love it. It's a beautiful conversation. Something that is topical, very topical from an astrological perspective, but all the things out here. I tell you, I had no idea. You know, if I look at a astrological chart, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. It's looking like I have no clue. It's like a map, old school map, trying to put coordinates together.
Love it.
I know it means something.
It's my favorite language. It's my favorite language. It just does so much more than English can.
Wow. I
And
love it.
my dad always jokes, it's like, you're reading hieroglyphics. I'm like, yeah, it feels like that. It seems like that.
It looks like I need a Rosetta Stone to translate that.
I love it. I love it. Like its own oracle. But I think that's the beauty of astrology. You know, a lot of folks only know sun signs, right? Many folks don't know that when you're born, you have a sun sign, you have a moon sign, you have a Mercury sign, you have a Venus sign. All the planets in our solar system are positioned in different signs when you're born, and each planet means something specific to your personality. So the birth chart, the astrology chart, is literally a picture that shows where everything was when you were born. And there's just so much that can be gleaned
just from that chart alone.
Yes. I mean, I've been studying and learning about astrology since I was little.
Yeah.
I've been doing this professionally for over a decade. And I still often feel like I am only skimming the surface.
Wow.
I mean, that's just how in depth it is.
Talk about the moon sign, because to your point, everyone knows for by and large their sun sign.
Right.
But how does the moon sign play into, I guess, maybe our personality, our formation, or our...
So, and that's an important point too, quite important question considering these eclipses, right? Because the moon is involved in these eclipses. The moon in our chart describes our needing nature. So it tells the story of how we deal with our feelings and emotions. It tells the story of what gives us a sense of emotional safety and security. It can also tell the story of what types of emotional environments you grew up in. It can tell the story of your emotional conditioning as well. And that information can be really helpful in terms of just developing your own emotional maturity. It tells the story of your mother, sometimes your mother wounds. And so the moon in astrology really reflects our feeling side. And with these eclipses, that kind of speaks to why we're feeling the feels and sensing things with these eclipses. Because again, a lunar eclipse is just a full moon. And a solar eclipse is the moon literally blocking the earth from the sun, or the sun from the earth. So the moon is heavily involved in these lunations. And I think what's powerful to note about the solar eclipse, I think I shared with you before this image I saw that NASA put out during the last solar eclipse on October 14th, 2023. And it literally was like the snapshot of when the eclipse reached its totality, and you could see the shadow on planet Earth. It was fascinating. That's right. And it was such an important symbol of what these eclipses generate, right? Having to confront our shadow selves, which is also very much connected to feelings, emotions, the moon. And that part is kind of blotted out for like a hot second, right? In order to just download what we need to download before the sun comes back out. So it's just, the moon is just such an important part of our chart and our makeup. I think of the changing tides as we come back to the ebbing and flowing of life. Like the moon is connected to these lunar cycles and how our own biorhythm ebbs and flows with the moon. So it's such an important part of our astrological DNA.
I'm gonna lean in, guys. So my moon sign is in Aries.
Yes.
So did you say feeling the feels? Right. Feeling the feels, yeah. So more meditation.
Yeah, that's a moon sign we both share. And I think for me, my way of working with it is to slow down, basically. Because Aries is all about, again, self-assertion, movement, doing, going. But because this energy is so palpable right now, what I don't want is to extend myself in a way that is not connected to my natural rhythm, to my natural state. So there is the need intentionally to, in fact, slow down and be deliberate with action and movements, especially if you have your moon in the sign of Aries.
Yeah. And feel free to rest. To rest. I know culturally resting, like taking a nap, there's the cultural perspective is that yeah, like wait, when you rest, you doing what? Like that was almost taboo. It's like, oh, you lazy. You know that part, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But no. Like I love it. Is it I know she's on Instagram, the bishop of the nap ministry.
Oh
Yeah. Like just chill, take a nap.
yeah. Just normalize naps.
Yeah, normalize a nap. We need that. Everybody just go take a nap.
Yeah.
Always have to be doing something.
Well, and I think what's also important, like I love this concept of normalize now, like we've normalized these things.
Correct.
Because not only is it okay for you to take a nap, but you deserve it, right? Like I want folks to start thinking along that line. Like I deserve a nap because being human is a lot.
Particularly at this juncture, right? At this point in the fight. Yeah.
This juncture is a lot. And I'm tired. Right?
Yeah.
And so just acknowledging that you deserve a nap, giving yourself permission to take a nap, to rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all deserve these things. There's nothing lazy, nothing, wrong with literally giving yourself permission to rest. Like I said, we live in a society, for better or worse, that, would have us betray these biorhythms that we innately possess. And it takes courage, but also an awareness and permission to be okay with operating in your natural state.
That's it.
It may be counterintuitive, but it's your natural state. You'll be fine.
You will be fine. I remember the first time I heard that was at a meditation retreat. And literally it was during the time where I was I had to have like 2 or 3 cups of green tea before I went to work because I needed to get a certain level of energy, right, to show up and really get it rocking. And I go to the meditation retreat and, they had it there, but I felt like I was so rested because, in meditation, you're releasing stress and all these toxins. So you're coming back to your natural biorhythms. And I at that point, I realized, I was like, oh, I'm enough without all that, right? Like my natural state is enough. Creative, intelligent, powerful, all of that.
It's enough.
All of that.
Yeah. And the beauty of that is you don't have to do anything to be who you are. Like you just need to be. That's it. It's so natural. It's so innate. It's so embedded in your soulful essence. You might have to remember, you might have to rediscover in case you've forgotten, but it's just so easy to just be in your natural state.
Just to be you.
Yeah, that's it.
Requires nothing. And it's more than enough. When you think about it, you're the only you anyway.
That's it.
8 billion people on this planet. You are the only you.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I say after every astrology reading. Like I'm looking at a chart that I've never seen before, right? Every chart is uniquely different. It says unique as we are as human beings. And that's what makes us special, even with the flaws that are inherent in our astrological makeup. It's still uniquely us. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful mess.
That's that Londrell. I love that Londrell. It's a beautiful mess. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. That's so powerful. That is so powerful. 8 billion and you're the only you. You're more than enough.
More than enough.
More than enough. And whatever.
I was going to say how great that you get to be here. One of 8 billion people, you get to be right here on this planet at this time. And how lucky is everyone else around you?
What? It's a blessing. It's a blessing for our very existence.
Exactly.
For our very existence. It's easy to tap into that gratitude. That gratitude that we are alive.
Yes.
We have our heart that's beating. We have air in our lungs. And all of it is abundant.
Yep. Exactly. That's it.
All of it is abundant. Life is good. Life is good.
Life is good. I would agree.
Life is good. I love it. Nah, that's dope. That's dope. So look, one of the portions of the show that I want to get back to, we haven't done in a while.
Okay.
Is top 5s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Top 5. So your birth chart is like, you're like another language, right? Another language that you can read into. I look at people's selection of music
Okay.
being universal, way in which they hear sound and interpret that. Who would be your top 5? Give me your top 5 musical artists. Who you got?
So it's tough, but it's not tough to answer. I don't know artists as much as I know songs. And so I will say that music that I've been resonating the most with and listening to the most is along the Afrobeats genre. Like I'm obsessed with Afrobeats right now.
Yeah.
And so I would say artists I can think of that I play on repeat, Tiwa Savage.
Okay. Yeah.
Fireboy.
Yeah.
LAX.
Okay. Not as familiar.
Melvito.
Mm-hmm.
Boy. Those are
Burna Boy. Yeah.
Those are some folks I can think of. I've been on an Afrobeats kick for a few years. Yeah.
I love it. Same here. And listen, I gotta learn how to dance Afrobeats.
Me too. I've actually been looking at classes to take in Philly.
Yo, that's dope. I go on YouTube. I'll be watching Bad Gal Cassie. She like out in France. She be killing it. I'm like, I could dance all ain't that bad, but it's just the rhythm of Afrobeats is a little and the footwork is different.
The footwork is different, but what I love about Afrobeats, there's something very liberating about it. Liberating of the body itself.
Yeah.
Especially when I think of like I'm a gym rat, and so movements are much more like intentional and deliberate.
Yeah.
As with Afrobeats, dancing in general, but with Afrobeats, there's just freedom that comes, it seems, with moving your body to an Afrobeat song.
Yeah. One of the artists I work out to is Burna Boy. Like I'll put on I'll put on the playlist just all day.
That's it.
All day. He's so unique that he singing, rapping, he cover all bases.
All of it. Yes.
All
he's
bases.
An artist. Yes.
Yeah. He's dope. That's cool. So we got your top 5 artists. Let's go to top 5 books.
Okay.
Top 5 books.
So yeah, I think I told you I've been devouring Young Pueblo, a poet and author who's just amazing. I love his style of writing. His books are super easy to absorb. And so I've just recently read his trilogy, which consists of 3 books. First one is called The Way Forward.
Okay.
Second one is called Inward. And then the third one is called Clarity and Connection.
Love it.
And then his last book, I think this is his most recent, it's called Lighter. So I'm reading that now. Those are, well, that's 4, but those are his work I've just been obsessed with. And Brianna West, she has a book out, I think it's called The Mountain and You.
Okay.
And her work is pretty amazing as well.
Young Pueblo and Brianna West.
Yeah.
And it's not like anything from Young Pueblo is a go.
Yes, I highly recommend. And
where's he from?
He's originally from Boston, Massachusetts, but I think his parents emigrated from Ecuador.
Ah, okay.
Family emigrated from Ecuador. And his books in many ways remind me of Don Miguel Ruiz's series of
The 4 Agreements.
Mm-hmm. Super easy to read and absorb and just like digest. It's just, and it also just, I don't know, maybe it's just the period in life that I was in when I started reading his stuff. It hits in like a very like, ooh, I felt that. So his writing is just very powerful.
Yeah, I gotta tap in Young Pueblo and Brianna West.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely gonna grab some. I appreciate that. Tracey, it's been an absolute honor and a blessing. One of the things that I like to do as well is to amplify the message, right? Amplify practices, amplify creators. People are out here really just, having the courage to share their voice, to share their gift, whether it's a YouTube channel or a podcast. So thank you for what you're doing with your podcast. I want to give a big shout to Natural Ally D, homegirl Danny, talking about aromatherapy and natural healing. Shout out to my man Creating Greatness, my man Robert, his podcast on YouTube, check them out. Go support, show love. There's always, just good vibes, good information, wisdom and intelligence that's being shared so we can amplify these voices. But also, as we talked about before, the change, the real lasting change, it begins when we start with ourselves. And then the world that we see, the world that we live in, the world that we seek to see in a more luminous way. It starts from within us. So I appreciate everybody. Soul family, I love y'all. Appreciate you. I can't wait to tap in again. I'll be back up here on Saturday, I believe it is. I got Danny. We're going to be talking about some aromatherapy and healing. So should be a good conversation. Tracey, before we jump off, anything else on your heart, my sister?
Just thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. I think that we are, as a collective, moving into some really pivotal new chapters. And it's nice to, give words to what we're experiencing energetically on this platform. And I hope that folks find the messaging of this energy supportive. And I'm just really appreciative for connecting in this way. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's so important. And you've been doing this for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And how many times you had to say yes to transformation, yes to bigger opportunities, yes during times of uncertainty, right? So big up and salute to you for sharing your gift, for the courage to continue to shine your light. We appreciate that. And make sure y'all check her out. You can hit up on her website, TraceyLRogers.com, for all the information. Get your readings, all your charts, very thorough. She's going to combine it with some life coaching. She's going to give you some gems, make it actionable, make it something that you're just not walking away with a chart and scratching your head. You know how to move around, and you have a better sense and clarity of what's going on. So, Tracey, thank you so much. This has been a dope conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care now.